Welcome to the Dr. Digital Podcast. And I have a special guest today, and hopefully he's going to be a friend because we've already talked before and actually been on a podcast. So that sounds pretty exciting. This is the Dr. Digital Podcast. It's the only podcast for those interested in growing their business with social audio. And for my special guest today, I have Simon.lader. Simon has been in the business for 25 plus years. He's hiring the top cyber sales and pre-sales execs for pre-IPO vendors, host and producer, which I know well because I was on it, the Conference Room Podcast. So it is my special guest today to get Simon. Simon, welcome to the program once again. It's great to see you again. And are you ready to have some podcast fun?
Absolutely, mate. Thanks so much for having me.
You bet. So for those who are not familiar with us, with your background, could you tell me a little bit about your background, especially how did you get started in the field that you did in specifically?
Okay, so I had a fairly, I would suggest, normal background in that I went to school, went to high school, went to university, came out of university, and really had no idea what I wanted to do. So I worked in a warehouse. I worked in, I sold double glazing. I sold kitchens. I did various different things. And then found myself working for a company that distributed car security systems. This was in my early 20s. And basically I finished high school 2 years early. So that's why I'd finished university and I was out working in my early 20s. And I went to a meeting with a company that was a manufacturer of a particular product I thought was really cool.
Yeah.
And was in the process of signing them up as a partner to the company I was working for when I got fired. And I thought, gosh, okay, that's a little bit of a surprise. And basically, I found out later the reason why I got fired was because unfortunately, I made the mistake of being more successful than anyone else in the team, and the rest of the team got a little bit irritated that this precocious 21-year-old was outselling and outperforming them, and so they basically decided that I didn't fit. Went to the VP, and the VP put a bullet in the back of my head, figuratively. So so I formed my own company. All I did was just call this guy back and said, hey, yeah, I know we've got this distribution agreement. It's not going to be with them, but I'm in the process of forming a company. Can I distribute it for you?
I see.
Not having a clue about distribution, I mean, a clue about cars, just thinking that this product was really cool. And so that was a great success. And so for 2 years, I basically ran my own company, managing and distributing car alarms, okay? And had a fleet of independent car alarm installation people. And that was really great. However, I realized when I was 23, basically my biggest competitor, whose lunch I'd been eating for about 6 months, came along and wrote me a jaw-wobbling check to acquire the company. And then so I banked that, walked away and thought, okay, I'm 23. Now what? Okay. And I literally had no idea what I wanted to do. And I was in the very fortunate position of not having to rush into something, right? Okay. I wasn't married. I was still living with my 2 best friends who were called Mum and Dad. And I was just in this very privileged position of not having to rush into another job.
Sure.
So I took the time of deciding, okay, what am I going to do? So I went and got the evening paper back when they had them, and was thumbing through the evening paper and the jobs, the situations wanted pages, and a company was advertising all these different kind of sales and marketing type positions, and I thought, well, that's interesting. So I thought, yeah, I mean, what I've been doing predominantly has been kind of sales and marketing, a little bit of operations now, but mainly kind of sales and marketing. So so I called them up and said, hey, you're advertising these positions. I'd like to come and talk to you about them. So I went in, not realizing, of course, that this was a recruitment company that were advertising all over their clients. I just thought they were advertising all these different sales positions for them. It just shows how naive and stupid I was. Still am.
Young.
Yeah. And so I met the guy, basically the MD of the company, who was enormously entertained by the fact that I had no idea what I was talking about, and just had boundless energy and enthusiasm and a real kind of can-do attitude. But it was only really into about kind of 40 minutes into the conversation that we both really enjoyed, that it became apparent I had no idea that they were a recruitment company, had no idea what a recruitment company even was, what it did, okay? And at that point, he basically said, look, I think you've got, huge energy, you're clearly bright, and you've got a great attitude. How do you feel about working for us? So I was like, what do you mean? I mean, isn't that what this conversation is about? So he said, no, we're a recruitment company. I went, what's a recruitment company? and he said to me, yeah, we'd like to offer you the job. I went, doing what? I mean, like, and then I just turned to him and I said, you know what? I don't really care what the job entails. I don't really care what the company does. I just feel I can learn from you. I can work for you. And I think this is going to be a great, if nothing else, educate. I said to him, we're going to kind of make a bit of a pact here where you're going to give me an education into this world of recruiting. And in return, I'll give you every ounce of energy and enthusiasm and ability that I've got. Sure. And let's see what happens. All right.
Yeah.
And I worked with him for 4 years, and it was the most incredible 4 years of my life. Right. During that time, I got married, bought a house, and enjoyed the most extraordinary career working for somebody who I've subsequently described as the Gordon Ramsay of the headhunting industry, right? This guy's incredibly gifted, incredibly talented, and I really owe my career to him. His name's Mark Bridges, and I've got a huge amount of respect and gratitude to him because he gave me my start in this industry that I love. 9/11 hit, and the company really was kind of struggling with how to kind of move forward, and I was contacted by a bigger kind of rival company, not really a direct competitor, but because I'd focused on the IT and software industry, and I'd really kind of built up a reputation there. They reached out and they wanted to build an IT sales arm to their business. They reached out to me and said, we've got this kind of fledgling business. Can you come and talk to us about maybe helping start it? So I went along and I was talking to them, and I met with the MD of the company, and he said to me, okay, so how much revenue do you think you can generate for us in the next 2 years? And I said 0. I said, I probably won't even cover my own salary. So he said, really? I said, yeah, and anyone that tells you differently is lying or stupid or both, because we're about to, we've just had the .com boom and we're in the bust. Okay. We've just had 9/11, and the whole world's going to go into some kind of recession. We don't know how long or how bad, and it's really going to hit the telecommunications and IT industry worse than anything else anyone's ever experienced. So if anyone says, oh, they're going to make you, generate you $1 million, then they're stupid or lying for saying it, and you're probably even more stupid for believing it. And with that, I said, listen, clearly this isn't going to work. Thank you, goodbye. And I got a call about 2 hours later offering me the job.
Well, there's an interesting way to get a job. Almost saying, no, I don't want it.
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't saying I didn't want it. I was basically and this has really been the hallmark of my career, and something that Mark, my first boss, really drilled into me, is that the worst thing any salesperson can do is overpromise, okay? Because it's always going to come back and bite you in the ass, okay?
It is, yes.
And it is a natural instinct of a salesperson to try and big up their product, and it becomes a natural problem of somebody that's going for an interview who, let's be honest, are selling themselves to try and figure out what they can do. And if anything, if you can minimize expectations, then and get somebody to kind of set, for want of a better word, settle or agree on those minimized expectations or reduced expectations and say, yeah, okay, that's fine. Then if you exceed that, then it's a win. All right. If someone's expecting 100, right, and you do 90, then it's a loss. But if someone's expecting 70 and you deliver 90, then it's a win. Either way, you've delivered 90. So why tell them you can give them 100? Tell them you can give them 80, 70, right? So anyway, that was a very different organization, my second organization, but working for no less an extraordinary individual called Chris Keeling, who is still a mentor of mine. And I worked for Chris for 4 years, and met and subsequently worked with and have since worked with the most extraordinary individual called Nicola Wilson, who we still collaborate on projects even today, like 20 years later. And that was an incredible experience. It took, and this is really where career development comes in. It took what I already had from Chess, my first company, and built it. And so 4 years later, I was ready to start Salisi Human Capital, which is the company I now run.
It's really interesting, and it reminds me of a Jack Welch comment where he says to under-promise, over-deliver. And that kind of encapsulates what you're trying to say. You manage expectations, but then you do more. And then, of course, people are thrilled because you didn't fib and you said what you could do, and then you did better. And you've actually addressed some of the things I was asking about, some of the changes that have taken place and some of the things that you have seen, and also being able to predict, which is really important for recruitment as well, too. What would you say are some of the changes, if you haven't touched on them already, or hot growth areas in your field currently?
Okay, so I mean, I've been in the industry 25 years. I like to joke that I started when I was 6. Obviously not, and a grey hair or two maybe lie that I'm a little older than 31. But the changes I've seen, I mean, the industry's changed enormously. I mean, when I first started, when you confirmed an interview between a candidate and the company that was going to be interviewing them, you were feeding resumes into a fax machine. Okay.
Yes.
Oftentimes, and if you wanted to know any information about a company, you have to call them and order their company brochure. Okay. The internet was I wouldn't even say it was in its infancy. It was embryonic at that point. And I remember the amount of people that just said it was a fad and it was all going away, and it was it was only for kind of geeks and purveyors of adult entertainment. So and obviously, I mean, don't get me wrong, I'm sure the geeks and the purveyors of adult entertainment have been in many ways pioneers of the industry, and interestingly, in the market that my company primarily services, which is the cybersecurity space, it's interesting that some of the biggest growth areas have been fueled by those two sectors, which we don't really like to talk about, but it's true. But that aside, social media, podcasting, LinkedIn, Facebook, Google advertising have dramatically changed how our industry works. LinkedIn alone has emerged, I would say, over the last probably 10 to 12 years as the dominant tool in the recruitment market. Sometimes perhaps too overused. Okay. And the amount of times I talk to people and they're like, oh, it's great to actually have a conversation with someone rather than just being bombarded by LinkedIn emails and connection requests. So I do think that in many ways, the art of conversation, good old-fashioned selling, picking up the phone up and just talking to somebody, has for many people, become a bit of a lost art. And fear has also come up a lot. People are terrified of saying the wrong thing, terrified of offending somebody, you know. Not wanting in any way to get political, but since when was it a sin to say something that somebody else, that hurt someone else's feelings? I mean, we're all grown-ups. I mean, when we're in the schoolyard or the playground, you know, if somebody said something, you know, sticks and stones. So,
absolutely, sure.
You know, and yet for some reason, when we're adults, everybody decides that, yeah, well, sticks and stones may break my bones, but names deserve you to get cancelled, or your career to be destroyed, or for us to put out on social media what an awful person you are, so that people hound you to the end of days, right?
Yeah.
I don't know. That's something that's changed. But I think the other big thing as well, and particularly over the last couple of years, since the beginning of the COVID pandemic, has been the speed with which the recruitment cycle happens, because people aren't jumping on planes and attending face-to-face interviews for the most part anymore. Certainly not in my industry, okay? Where before it was, well, we'll have a phone call and then we'll both jump on a plane and meet in a mutually convenient airport, or you know, you'll jump on a plane and come to my office, or I'll jump on a plane and come to yours, or whatever. Now, because of Zoom, Teams, you know, I mean, case in point,
yes,
you and I are in completely different cities, and yet here we are having a conversation. We might as well be in the same room, you know.
Yes,
and that's really impacted also on the recruitment market as well, and the fact that it's also opened up where people can be based. I have a number of clients in Israel and in Europe that hire people. Or I mean, I've also got I've got clients in the US who similarly will they have no centralized office. They've got an office address, but it's typically like a Regis or a WeWork or something. But they have purely for administrative purposes. Everybody's based from home because they're using Zoom and using Slack, and they're using Notion and Airtable and all these other wonderful tools that mean that people don't have to be in the office. So these are just a couple of the changes that I've seen. But if you aggregate all these changes together, the world is a very, very different place to the world I started recruiting for back in 1997.
Way back when, as I said, I always say, when the dinosaurs roamed the earth.
Exactly.
A long time ago. When people are listening to you and they see what you do and they hear what you do, what would you recommend business owners consider when they think of recruitment? And especially now, because there are so many changes, what should business owners be thinking of as far as recruitment goes?
Okay, so that's a really great question, and it's something that I get asked a lot, right? There are really two things that I see a lot of people doing that seem to be the right thing to do.
Okay.
But for the most part are not. Okay. The thing, and they are, many recruiters, most recruiters, in fact, the industry is dominated by what we call contingency recruiters, which are no win, no fee. All right. So you don't pay them a fee until they successfully place a candidate with your organization.
Gotcha. Sure. Okay.
And so a lot of people think, well, that's great. I mean, I can take, say, a few candidates from that guy over there and not pay unless he fills, a few candidates from that guy over there, a few candidates from that guy over there. And then I'll have 12, 13 candidates from all these different places, and I can just pick the one that I want to hire, and then I'll pay that guy for hiring, right? Yeah. And that seems like a great deal.
Okay.
The problem is that unless you are hiring, forgive me, low-skilled or very easily available people, okay? Maybe you're looking for, you have a warehouse and you're looking for people to like pick off the shelves, okay? Maybe that kind of model might work. But once you're getting into an area where you're looking for more highly trained, more highly skilled people, or you're looking for a rarer skill set, that model really doesn't work. And I'll explain why, okay?
Yes, that's what I was going. I was curious, what kind of expertise do you have? That's what I was going to ask you. So yeah, anticipated
Right.
that. Good.
So, okay, I'll give you an example. All right.
Okay.
In my world, okay, I work in cybersecurity, and I deal with predominantly salespeople, sales engineers, marketing people, consulting, and leadership. Okay. Now, the thing is, if you are a business owner, you want to hire the best people in the industry. Like, why wouldn't you? Okay.
Sure.
The same way that if you're a sports franchise owner, you want the best guy,
best players
in that, the best player in that position. Otherwise, you're not going to be able to level up. All right.
Yep.
Now, the best guys in any position and the best talent in any organization is going to be really well protected and well looked after by the organization. Okay.
Yeah.
So if you want to go and hire someone like that, you're not going to find them by sticking a job posting on LinkedIn, or sticking an advertisement in the local paper, or sticking a posting on a job board, simply because these guys are not actively looking for jobs. They're just not. Why would they? They're well looked after, well rewarded, well protected by their employer because they're doing such a great job. Okay.
Yes. Yep.
So in order to go and attract that level of talent, the one thing you need more than anything else is time, because you as a hiring organization need the time to actually go and chip away at this person, to encourage and coax and cajole them to come and talk to you. Okay. And that's not going to happen over one phone call. That's certainly not going to happen over one email or one in-mail or a connection request on LinkedIn. It's going to take several. You've got to nag, mither, cajole, convince them to at least be open to having a conversation with you. And maybe subsequent conversations later, after the thoughts about it and thought maybe what you can offer is better for them or not, or whatever, they'll actually come and meet with you, they'll talk to you. And then after a few conversations, they will have come to the position of, do you know what you're offering is a step change enough in their career for them to move from where they are very happy and very well looked after and come and do the same thing for you. All right. All that takes time. Okay. Now, imagine you, rather than you doing this yourself, because you may not have either the expertise, the contact network, the know-how, right? You want to get another organization to do it. Okay. So if you go after a contingency recruitment company, okay, the one thing they don't have is time. In particular, if you ask 2 or 3 different companies, okay, the best analogy I can give is if you went to 3 different CPAs and said to them, right, I need my tax return done by whatever day, by, I don't know, the end of next week, and I'll pay the first company that completes it. All 3 of you go do my tax returns for me, but I'll pay the first company that completes it, right?
Yep.
Now, it doesn't become a competition in quality. It becomes a race, and a race to the bottom of the pile.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Because when you have multiple organizations all competing for the same work, okay, when it comes to something like this, you are rewarding them based on how quickly they can complete the work, rather than the quality with which
quality. Sure. Yeah.
All right. Yep. So to that end, sorry, I've got somebody joining me in the background. to that end, what effectively happens is that what you're going to get, what you're going to end up with are not 3 companies who are trying to provide you with the best possible talent. What you're left with are 3 companies that are working as quickly as they can, because here's what they know that you don't. They all have the same contacts. They all know the same people, because they all have access to LinkedIn, Zoom info, and most recruitment companies specialize in a particular area, which means they have the same contact base. So effectively, when you call 3 different recruitment companies, what you're basically saying is, guys, you all know who the best people are in the industry, or you all have access to the contact details of the best people in the industry. On your marks, get set,
go. Yeah.
All right. Yeah. And what do you think is going to happen? Are they going to go and try and coax out that really hard to find guy who's going to spend a week or two thinking and deciding whether or not to go for it? Or are they just going to go and stick an ad on Monster, stick an ad on LinkedIn, and call the people that they know are desperate and will talk to anybody? All right.
Yeah. Yep.
And so if you're sticking an ad on Monster, an ad on LinkedIn, and getting that the people from the top of the pile that are always in contact with recruitment companies, what are you going to end up with? Yeah, people who are desperate to leave where they are.
Yes.
And they'll go for anything.
Yep.
Anything at all. So what you're left with are people who will come and join. You'll think, oh, these people interviewed well. Well, of course they interviewed well. They were told exactly what to say in the interview by the recruiter. All right. Yep. They're interviewing well. And here's what happens. You hire them and you are paying their mortgage, their kids' tuition, their living expenses while they find the job they really want to do.
Yeah. No question.
3 to 6 months later, they say, good night, Vienna. They leave you, and they go and get the job they really wanted in the first place. All right?
Yep. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So, and by the way, the statistics that back this up are crazy. It's something like 70 in the US.
Yeah.
I think it's something, I don't have them off the top of my head exact, but it's something like 70% of candidates who found a job through contingent recruiting left within the first 12 months. And it's obvious why.
Yeah, they're unhappy, and you got just, it's a hamster wheel. You're just turning and churning people around.
If you look at the and just take a sample exercise, and I would encourage anyone that's listening to this to do the same thing. Go on LinkedIn and go on, just randomly take a look at salespeople, pre-sales people within the software industry. All right. And you'll find more than 2/3 of the ones that you look at, just randomly, more than 2/3 have had more than 3 jobs in the last 5 years.
Yep, it's true.
And if you say, do you know what? Well, the last 2 years have been COVID. Okay, ignore the last 2 years then. And look at the previous 5 years.
Yep.
They've had more than 3 jobs in that period of time. Why? Because the dominant recruiting methodology is broken.
Yeah.
And that's this contingent recruiting. As opposed to working with a retained or an exclusive recruiter where you're basically saying, okay, Mr. Recruiter, I'm going to give you the time, I'm going to give you the bandwidth and the commitment to go and do it. All right. And so when you say to me, what are the primary things that business owners should do? Number one, ideally go retained with a recruiter, because if you can show them you're committed to them, I guarantee you they'll be committed back to you. But absolutely, number 2, never use more than 1 recruiter for any position you're working on.
Gotcha. You presented a really unique view and learned a lot. And the reason I say this is because for most of us who are in the job application, as I was a younger person, I never saw this insight. So I learned a lot, and hopefully the audience did as well too. So now the big question, of course, since you're unique and you have a very insightful view of this, how would people get a hold of you, and what would you recommend? Because I think a lot of people would say, this is a person I would like to work with. How would they reach out to you?
Okay, so the best way to do it is we are launching, or depending on when this goes out and people listen to this, we have launched a Facebook group that's going to be packed full of extremely useful resources, and they're all going to be free. Okay, so if you want to, the best way to reach out or to at least enter our world and think, hey, can I work with this guy? Do I like the cut of this guy's jib? The best way to do it is to join our Facebook group. So in joining our Facebook group, you'll get, that's going to be packed full of resources that people can use, where we really break down our formula that people can, by all means, use themselves, if they want to go for it themselves, or have us kind of guide them a little bit through it, they can do that entirely free. It's all the resources are there. We've got templates, we've got guides, everything from how to write great job specs, how to interview properly, how to transition recruiting, if you're more used to face-to-face recruiting, to transition that into remote recruiting, how to make sure that you make job offers that can be accepted, really walking people through the methodology that we use. And it's all free, it's all accessible, it's all going to be inside the group. However, if you feel, do you know what, we can't really do this ourselves, or we would benefit from maybe working with a company that can really help us out and do it for us, then there'll be plenty of links on there to scheduling an appointment with me or one of my team, and we'd be more than delighted to work with anyone. Our sweet spot is cybersecurity vendors, typically pre-IPO, typically under 300 employees, and we work with sales engineering, marketing, consulting, product, anything in leadership, anything at C-level, VP level. So if you think we can maybe help you, or you just want to have a chat, by all means, reach out.
Sounds good. Well, delightful to chat with you. But I'd say that, but I encourage people to call, because look how delightful you are to chat with. So thank you, Simon, for your time. I really appreciate it. Learned a lot, learned a great deal. Seeing how our things are from the other side, the recruitment side, is really insightful. Thank you for your time. I appreciate it, Simon.
Mick, it's been a real pleasure. Thanks so much.
You bet. So this is the Dr. Digital podcast, and hopefully you stay to the very end and you can get a free complimentary website analysis. Just get a hold of me at Mick, as in Jagger, except he makes more money. Mick.Smith@WSIworld.com. That's it for this particular episode. Until next time, Deus Volt.